God bless you.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome
Good
to.
morning.
Thank you. Welcome to the April 16th, 2020 committee meeting on public safety, judiciary, and homeland security. We would like to have a roll call.
Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Here.
Commissioner Kanizik.
Here.
Commissioner Dobb.
Here.
Commissioner Baidoon.
Here.
Commissioner Basham.
Here.
Commissioner Scott.
Present.
Chair Clark Coleman.
Here.
You have a quorum present.
Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for joining us on this meeting. I'm sure that you know that this is strictly an informational meeting, and we'll be hearing from the prosecutor or someone from the prosecutor's office, as well as the sheriff's office. In addition to that, we'll also hear from someone from Homeland Security. So just take a couple minutes to say, I'm glad to see everyone is well. I'm glad to see everyone following the social distancing and isolation that we know will keep us safe and happy. So on that note, we will now move on to Madam Clerk.
B, approval of the March 11th, 2020 meeting minutes.
So moved, Baidoon.
Support. Passion.
Okay, been properly moved by Commissioner Baidoon and supported by Commissioner Ray Basham. Are there questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Madam Clerk?
C, old business. There is none.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Item D1, under new business, discussion with the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office about the actions it's taking regarding the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, so we have here today representing the prosecutor's office.
Kim Worthy, Wayne County Prosecutor is here.
Oh, we got the prosecutor.
Yes, and I have Mark Hinderling from my office who's going to talk briefly about all the IT changes we've had to make to be able to appear in court and conduct our business. And then Tony Guerrero, of course, is always on the call.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. I repeat the comments of Madam Chair. I'm glad everybody is healthy and their families are healthy. This is a trying time. How much time do I have, Madam Chair? I don't want to talk too long.
Whatever you need.
Okay. I still will try not to talk too long, but you know me by now. We have, we run one of the largest prosecutor's offices in the country. And what we tried to do to prepare for when this all happened is we went to a rotating schedule. I had all my division chiefs rotate both their investigative, their advocates, their victim advocates, their prosecutors, and their support staff on a rotating basis, especially when the paid furlough started. So we would have as little people in the office as possible. And that worked fairly well. We had people that were coming in, taking files home before we went to remote access and getting the work done. And we're an office where everybody's essential, we're public safety, and this will be further illustrated by some of the other things that I say. It really hit home for us, I think, when Commander Cornell died. He was the head of the homicide unit for the Detroit Police Department. We had prosecutors that were still going over there on a regular basis. We started hearing about just the tens of officers that were infected. And so at that point, right after Chief Cornell died, I told my staff that no one is to go over to police headquarters or any other precincts. We are going to stop having officers come over here. So for those of you who are not familiar, just very briefly, our warrant or screening function is where police officers from around the country, from our 43 cities, as well as the other 50 plus police agencies that we deal with, including all the alphabets in the federal government. When I say alphabets, I mean FBI, ATF, all of the people there, as well as the Sheriff's Department and all of the Michigan State Police posts in Wayne County. So for our out-county departments, we always have had, for the most part, all of those agencies sending their warrant requests in electronically. And then my staff would look at them and then determine if warrants were going to be issued, if charges were going to be issued, if in fact what the charges would be, or if charges were going to be denied, or if we had to return the file for more investigative work. Detroit Police Department has always come to our offices, and they've always brought in victims. Out County Department would bring in complaining victims if need be, so we can talk to them and interview them in person, because as you know, that's important when you are getting ready to charge a person with an offense. You want to be able to evaluate in person the victim of the crime that is making the allegations. So we had to stop all that. I had a conversation with Chief Craig. This happened before he got sick, and I let him know that we could no longer have his officers come into our offices. And so my warrant section had to scramble, and I'm going to have Mark talk about some of the things that had to be done mightily to make sure that all Detroit Police Department warrants were coming over electronically as well. We also let the public know in the most humane ways possible that they could no longer come in. We had an additional problem with defense attorneys because they are coming in on a daily basis, getting their information for trials called discovery, their packets to pick up, and also to negotiate plea agreements and other case issues with our lawyers, with our supervising lawyers. So it's a big sea change for us. One of the things that I always said that I did not like is I did not like over-the-phone interviews with our victims, because like I said a minute ago, I like for them to come in and so we can assess them with our eyes. But of course, because of this pandemic, I relaxed that and said that we're going to have to start doing some of these on the phone. We cannot endanger our employees. We cannot endanger our victims, having them to introduce themselves into a situation and or possibly bringing into the offices any symptoms. And we all know about the asymptomatic properties now into our office. So we also had to work with the court, and working with the district courts was very, very problematic at first. It still is not going as smoothly as possible. As you know, Wayne County has, I believe it's 27 or 28 district courts in our various cities. You are all familiar with your local district courts, and all of them had different policies. They were all doing things differently. In the Third Circuit Court, Judge Kinney, very early on, who's been a pleasure to work with, has established some guidelines. There would be no jury trials. There would be no, from Circuit Court, I'm sorry. Thank you, Third Circuit Court, Wayne County Circuit Court. There would be no jury trials. There would be no waiver trials, no judge trials until further notice. We would do emergency bond motions for defendants that that their lawyers were trying to get them out of the jail because of COVID and also just because of regular reasons. We would do those. We would do preliminary examinations at first in the district courts, and some other hearings we would do. We started doing that at first in person, and a very, very lowered, you only had a few judges coming in. I think it was 4, and Mark can correct me later if I'm wrong, instead of the over 20 judges we have in the criminal division. So there would be minimal exposure to people working in court. Well, deputies started testing positive at an alarming rate, and I'm sure Sheriff Napoleon will mention that. It seemed every day we were getting notice that a defense attorney had tested positive in either a district court or the Third Circuit Court. We struggled to get information about where those people had been, what other courts they had been. And it just became such a dangerous, incendiary situation. And so Judge Kinney stopped all of that, and we went to a remote process, which again, Mark will detail. So the remote process is working fairly well right now. But working with the court was key, very, very key to getting to the place where we are now. And again, it's been a pleasurable collaboration. I've known him for a long time, Judge Kinney, but it's very easy to work with, very responsive. So I want to give him that kind of shout out because he deserves it. The district courts were another thing. We still struggle daily with 36 district court. They are well-meaning, but they're big and sometimes unwieldy. And we are, I think, finally getting to a better place with them. The district courts for weeks and weeks were all doing their own thing, which was very difficult. We were sending people physically out to do those cases. They were some of them were insisting on doing cases where the defendant was not in custody, whereas the Third Circuit Court and some other circuit courts were focusing, rightfully so, on those that were incarcerated. So again, that's still been a struggle. The district court situation, we had to reach out to the state court administrator's office to get us some clarity and some uniformity, but it's still a work in process, I must say. There's a whole lot I can say, but I'm going to move on to something else. We knew very, very early that because of the stay-at-home orders that we were going to see a spike in domestic violence. And we were very concerned about domestic violence because, as you know, Wayne County has a huge, huge domestic violence issue. You've heard me say this many times. Last year, in 2019, we reviewed 8,800 cases of domestic violence in Wayne County. Which, as you know, you've heard me say many times, which is a source of problems for our resources. But 8,800 cases of domestic violence, and we always fear that each one of those could turn into a homicide. But we knew with the additional ingredients of having everybody stay at home, and in many cases, when people are released from jail, coming back to that same situation, there were going to be problems that abounded. So I can't say right now, I can't give you stats right now on what the exact numbers are, how much they've raised. As you can imagine, a lot of police departments are not arresting as many people. They have their own issues with people getting sick and keeping people from being exposed. And so I'm just letting you know now that there is going to be when this hopefully resolves, or whatever the new normal is going to be, we are going to have an onslaught of cases, and it's very frightening to those of us in the criminal justice field. But I can tell you the domestic violence cases that we are seeing are more tragic, are more violent. Instead of having a quote-unquote regular fight and some injuries and among domestic violence that we're seeing are misdemeanor cases, we are seeing a family member slam, for example, one case out of Canton. The defendant that we charged not only terrorized his family in a horrible way, but also took his 8-year-old daughter and slammed her head into the pavement of the driveway. Things, 5 times, things like that. And we've had several more homicides than we usually have seen at this time of the year. And so we're very, very concerned about that. As you can imagine, when we are all in close quarters, if there's already something broiling, it's going to cause problems. So I did open. I hope all of you have joined my Facebook page. I opened a COVID-19 Facebook page because I'm not able to get out and communicate with people at town halls, at meetings, or go see people, and like we all normally are used to doing. Contact with our constituents on a regular basis, explaining the office and explaining our issues. I did open this Wayne County Prosecutor's Office Facebook page. I mention that because I want you to be a part of it, but also because, and encourages constituents to be a part of it, because they are getting useful information. And on several occasions, we have placed on our Facebook page resources for people and families in crisis. We have contacted each one of those agencies. We know that they're still in business. There are a few more agencies that I need to add, like the Sasha Center. We've tried to include agencies that tend to serve a certain segment of the public, like we have Access that tends to serve the Arab American community. We have other, we're Sasha Center that tends to serve African American communities. We have others for our Latina community, and we're still collecting information, but we want to make sure that people are getting the help, that they know the help is available if they need it. But we're still very fearful that sometimes their attackers and abusers are living right home in close quarters and they cannot leave. And so that's something that we're very concerned about. I want to just talk just a minute about what we're beginning to see now. I was informed yesterday by my staff that we had the warrant submissions to see if we were going to charge cases had gone down, as you can imagine, and now they're beginning to go up. We received over 70 from the Michigan State Police yesterday. We are receiving more now from our out county offices, and it's beginning to go up. And it's creating a big problem because we don't have the staff on hand that we normally have. And I should say that my warrant section basically is almost fully in the office every single day. And it's very stressful for all of them, and I got to figure out something to do for them when this is over.
Prosecutor.
And so, yeah.
Prosecutor, just to interrupt you because I don't want this to, I don't want us to forget to mention this. You mentioned that you had a Facebook page.
Yeah.
What is it under? What is the name of the Facebook page?
Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, Michigan, because there are other Wayne counties in the country. So Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, Michigan. So I can send you the direct link when I get off the phone as well.
Please do. That would help.
It has a lot of information. It has information also about stimulus check scams, about people who have set up shop to get this stimulus check for some of our seniors, etc. So there's information about that on there as well. And there's other information, too, that I think you'll find very helpful, specifically during this pandemic. I'm going to wrap it up quickly because I want Mark to talk about the IT changes we've had to make.
Okay,
and so
before you do that, I'm gonna let you do that. But I just also wanted to say to you that it's strange that you should bring up the subject of domestic violence, because I was thinking about that yesterday, and I'm wondering, what's going on? How are the families handling this COVID situation by them being there together all the time? If you've got an abusive situation, I just wondered how they were, if we were getting any repercussions from that. So that was
it's erupting the violence. And I don't think that we will know completely until the new normal approaches when this is quote unquote over, because as you know, part of the problem is the domestic violence psychological impact is a lot of people don't call the police. They don't have access to a phone when the person that at least sometimes leaves the home to work, and they can go and they can contact relatives, they can contact agencies and that kind of thing. So that's why we're doing the best that we can to try to get the information out there. And if you have any ideas about things that we can do, it's on our page, it's on our website. If you have any other things that we can do, I'm happy to listen to that. That's a grave concern. Family violence increases during this COVID crisis. I'm going to be participating in a nationwide for prosecutors and investigators on family violence. I will share some of that information on my page and with you personally if you want to have that, about what people are doing in other jurisdictions as well for family violence. But again, information is key, and unfortunately, we don't know about a lot of it until it erupts into violence.
Okay, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I figured if we go to another subject, I might not be able to get those answers. But those were two good points. So thank you.
So there's a lot going on, and before I turn it over to Mark for a few minutes, I just want to make a quick comment about jail releases. Administrative jail releases. I'm sure Sheriff Napoleon will talk about that a lot. We've been working very, very well collaboratively with his office, with the Third Circuit Court Chief Judge Jim Kinney, who I mentioned earlier, with jail medical personnel, with people in charge of Benny Napoleon's shop, which I have to say, it's been a pleasure to work with them. They are committed. They are working around the clock to try to make sure the inmates in the jail are released safely and are cared for properly. I'll let him talk about that. But let me just say there's a lot of misinformation about jail releases going on out there, that Wayne County is doing nothing, that we don't care about our inmates, and all the stuff that I hear on a regular basis that just simply is not true. And I'm going to be putting something on my page in the next couple of days with some truth about that, talking about the history of administrative jail releases. But I just want to let you know, and of course I'll be willing to talk about this further if there's more time after everybody else speaks. Sheriff Napoleon's representatives and we also have lawyers that represent the inmates on the call, as well as a representative from the NAACP on all these calls. And I spend personally about 3 to 5 hours a day working on these jail releases, looking up liens, looking up cases, getting the facts to everybody, letting people know, giving recommendations to our committee that we talk on the phone with on an almost daily basis, and getting the information out and making humane calls. And there are two things that are most important. First, that our inmates are treated humanely. We don't want them exposed to the virus. But two, and this is what a lot of people seem to forget, we have victims on the outside who've been victimized by some of these inmates that we have to be concerned about. And so we started off by looking at people who were spending time in the jail on the weekends, and then we went to the work release and releasing most of them. Then we went to the misdemeanors and ordinance violations and released a good portion of them. And looking at people who have been sentenced by judges to time in jail, and looking at them and releasing a lot of them early. And there have been over 100, well over 100. There were just 25 or 27 yesterday that we all agreed that my office recommended to release, and then the judge ordered release. This is a daily, time-consuming process. A scary process, especially for a prosecutor, because we are intimately involved and we intimately know what some of these inmates have done to some of our victims. The domestic violence ones are the most scary, where people are in jail now for domestic violence and aggravated domestic violence. We contact the victims. Some of them are petrified that they're going to be released. Some say okay, but just make sure there's a tether and a no contact provision. I know we are overworking Sheriff Napoleon's tether department, because a lot of people are being released on these tethers. Unfortunately, on the other hand, we have quite a number of those who are cutting their tethers off right away, and the sheriff's department has to go out there and rearrest them. But we have been very humane, and Dan Faunus, the undersheriff, announced on our county call this morning, and the chair was on the call, Chair Bell was on the call, that we are down to 865 inmates in the county jail. Contrast that to New York City, 4,000, LA, 4,000, Cook County, 3,000. And I don't know this to be a fact, but I believe it's a fact that we of the major jurisdictions, we probably have the lowest numbers of inmates in the jail. And I don't know that for 199% fact, but I'm going to start finding out. And that's because of the cooperation, the cooperative efforts, the expertise of Sheriff Napoleon's people, because we have, been on the consent decree and looking at these issues for decades. And so we didn't just start doing these releases when the COVID crisis hit. So I have a lot more information to say about that, but I'm going to let the sheriff do that. And I just want to have Mark Henderling in my office talk about what we've had to do to be able to work remotely, do discovery, and all the other major issues we've had as an urban prosecutor's office.
So,
Morning.
Mark, just one second. So, to my committee members, would you like to hear the entire presentation and then ask questions, or would you like to do otherwise?
The presentation, I would think.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Commissioner Baydun had a question.
Commissioner Baydun, okay. Commissioner Baydun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I'll wait until after the presentation.
Okay.
Okay. Mark?
Thank you. Madam Prosecutor, Commissioners, in the chat, I have put a link to the prosecutor's Facebook page. You can also search for it with the @ symbol WCPO Michigan. So
Did you say that again?
Yes, you can search for it at WCPO Michigan, Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, Michigan.
Thank you.
Irma, I posted it on your Facebook page.
I'm sorry?
All right. Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I posted it on your Facebook page.
That's fine. Mark, you want to continue?
Yes, thank you. So I want to start with some of the things that we have talked about before, including the hardware. So the actual computers that we've been using. We are in the midst of a technology refresh, and that's a great thing because most of our prosecutors have laptops now. Support staff, we bought desktops for them and are in the midst of replacing those because no one saw this pandemic coming where someone would have to work from home as support staff. Unfortunately, the district court staff received some of the newer desktops, so they do not have laptops, and that's caused some issues that I'll talk about shortly. We have about 10 to 15 old laptops that we used to send into jury rooms for deliberations, and all of those have been pulled out, reconfigured, and with our software, and all of those have been given to staff. So we have laptops that are anywhere from 8 to 10 years old that are now being used very hard in a remote sense. We also have all of the webcams that we had in the office deployed to our district court staff so they can appear via Zoom. And we didn't have that many. They're also very tough to actually go out and purchase right now. So a number of staff had old webcams that they have donated. So we are running on county equipment and donated equipment to allow the district court attorneys to appear in those Zoom meetings. Some of the limitations that we've talked about in terms of hardware are not everyone has a county laptop. And then we also ran into a limitation with the public appearing at sentencings. So some families were able to record a statement and send that in that was played for the court. Some families did not have access to technology or internet access, and so they were not able to appear. We are working that out. Some went to police agencies to appear there, but now many police agencies are trying to limit the contact with public as well. So that continues to be a case-by-case problem solving when it comes up. Software has been a savior for us, and the Department of Technology in the county has been fantastic in supporting us. As the commission knows, we have Office 365, and they pushed out a number of our users, about 20 or so, to have full access to the sharing capabilities in Office 365, which has been essential to keep track of all of the lists coming from the jail and the prisons to make sure that we have reviewed each of those defendants and we can either object or agree as needed. We've conducted over 20 hours of training for our staff of how to use Zoom effectively in court appearances. And the biggest piece of software that we have relied on is evidence.com. Many of you will remember this is a product that you have approved. We have a 5-year contract with evidence.com, and we were in the midst of a pilot program with Taylor and Garden City to work out the kinks of how to accept evidence digitally from a police department, and then also work out the internal processes in our office of how to actually deal with that. When this hit, that pilot program became a full county implementation overnight, and we've built over 500 cases so far, with cases being submitted. We are relying on evidence.com to accept media, so video, audio, anything that's basically not paper, from the police agencies. We are collecting it in evidence.com, and I'm going to mention the discovery process in a moment. We are sending discovery out through evidence.com. It is not a perfect solution.
Discovery, for those who may not know, is information that by law we must give all the case information to defense attorneys.
So evidence.com is not a perfect solution, but without it, we would be stuck with dealing with in-person discs and having to do physical media. So even though it's not a perfect solution, it is a very good solution, and without it, we would not be able to operate. We have a unit inside of the office called the Litigation Technology Unit, and they are there to support the attorneys in creating and going to trial. So they create trial exhibits, they help attorneys work with the technology and make it work in front of the juries and help make cases compelling in front of juries. And that unit has been the vanguard of troubleshooting with police agencies. So we have 7 people in that unit, and they have been on the phone with police agencies and our staff, working through upload issues and making sure that we are getting usable information. One of the biggest limitations that we have run into is a software limitation. We do not have a case management system. So we don't have the ability to remotely connect in a secure fashion to our cases. And that is a big problem, as I'm sure that it's apparent to you. So when a list comes out and says, here are the people that the jail might want to release, do we have an objection to that? Either people have to go back in, or they have to rely on someone in the office to look up everyone on that list. It's not a smooth operation. And that is something that we desperately need, especially as we look forward to going to the Criminal Justice Center. Pardon me. We also do not have a unified electronic discovery process that could be incorporated to a case management system, but is not currently available to us. And so, as the prosecutor said, discovery is one of the big things that we are legally required to do in every case. We are required to give out the information that we are going to use in that prosecution to the defense. And so what we worked on is to try and limit the number of people in the office on any given day, is that all of the units who have a staff member for whom discovery is part of their job, we are rotating through. And so we have a discovery request form that was put together and is now live on the site and is being used by the defense bar to request the discovery. We have some staff members who are medically unable to come into the office because of their health issues, who are working remotely and reviewing those requests that come in, going to evidence.com and putting together a case, making sure it's redacted so all the personal information of a victim or a witness doesn't get out to anyone that we don't want it to, and then actually sending it out. So we have had over 100 cases sent out through that process, and it's been a learning curve, but it is limping along. The limitations with that is it's a new process. So every day that someone's there, it's their first day on the job. And so it's a lot of learning, but that has smoothed out over the last 2 weeks. And it's also not a unified process, meaning that we're dealing with at least 3 different systems with the request form, evidence.com, and our adult case tracking, which is where our case management is. So there's a lot of checking back and forth that a unified case management system would help resolve. Getting that discovery process up has been essential, and it has been no small feat, but our staff has responded very well to it. And the defense bar has been patient, which has also been a nice surprise. Prosecutor, that is the end of what I have, unless you wanted me to address anything specifically.
So I just wanted people to know, all of you to know that I just want to finish up and then take your questions if you have any. I just want everybody to know that this has been a Herculean process. As he indicated, that we were in the middle of a pilot program to iron out the kinks, and when this happened, we had to then deploy it with not knowing what the kinks are. I wanted to make 2 more very quick points. Another thing that we're dealing with, and among everything else that we're dealing with, is the MDOC has decided to release a lot of prisoners as well. The problem is that they didn't let us know that they were going to do this in advance. They say that they're trying to release only the ones where, and this is a safety issue, that's why I want you all to know what's happening. The ones where there's no victim on file. So they give us a letter which is called a 28-day letter, where most counties would get maybe 10. We've gotten over 175, close to 200. And so what we've had to do, and we only have 28 days to respond, whether we object, although I have to tell you they're going to release them anyway. And I wouldn't be as concerned if we were talking about a breaking in a B&E man or an auto theft woman. We're talking about murder in the 2nd degree. We're talking about rape in the 1st degree. We're talking about carjacking. We're talking about armed robbery, which are all capital offenses. So we're talking about very, very serious dangerous people. And so the parole board is going to do what the parole board is going to do, and the state's going to do what the state's going to do, and we don't have any say in that, other than we can put our objection on the record within this 28-day period. But what I have to know is, despite our limitations and everything we're trying to do during this COVID process, on top of that, we have to, in these almost 200 letters, find the victim. I don't know how, if one of you had your daughter or son murdered and they were convicted of murder too, you would want to know a person was getting out of prison. Mm-hmm. And so we have to find them, which is a toll on our investigative staff, who's also operating. We have a number of them who have health issues, cancer, and that we don't want to expose. But the other ones are dutifully coming in. We also have to find the victim, look up the lien, see what their previous record has been, see what the facts of the case are in some instances before we can respond. And so this is additional toll in the office that we normally wouldn't have even in better times. Last thing I want to mention, and I have a whole lot more, but I just cut it down to certain categories. Last thing I want to mention is as you know, we've talked about this before, because of our staffing issues, even in good times, we have a number of warrants that police agencies will bring. All of you, I'm sure, have heard from your chiefs of police, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office doesn't timely get to some of their not in custody warrants, although we have making good progress because Tony and I have gone around to each and every jurisdiction, talked to the police chief, in some cases the judges, the mayors, et cetera, and moved to the top of the list any problems that they've had. So we were making some good headway. But another in custody warrant is a person who commits a crime and they submit the warrant package to us, but the person's not in jail. They haven't been put in jail. So sometimes you would think that most of them are lower level crimes, but some are not. And we have a lot of child abuse. We have a lot of domestic violence cases. We have other cases in that loop. But because we've had some people working remotely, we've had people working beyond the 8 hours a day and doing some of these not in custody warrants. And so the problem has become, we have over 100, maybe 150 of them, as I told the county this morning, and Madam Chair heard this morning, me say this, we don't have the typists to keep up with that. So now these warrants that have been approved are now just sitting waiting to be typed. So we have some other issues as well, but I have to say, overall, if there's a silver lining to all of this, I have to say, and I've said this before, we have some excellent leadership in this county, from the commission to the CEO's office to Homeland Security to the Sheriff's Department to all the other departments and elected officials, that we have really worked together collaboratively. It's been about not just the issue that our individual departments are having, and there are many. I know Sheriff Napoleon's been hit harder than me, probably hit harder than anybody in the county. But still, we're working together cooperatively. We are grieving quietly. We're praying, but we're also working together. And it has been a real pleasure, if I can use that word, to work with these departments who do everything they can to try to assist us with our issues, who try to, email us at all hours of the night, and because we have a lot of issues. And so I just have to say, I always knew we had great leadership in this county from all of you on this call and others, but I have really been buoyed by the fact that everyone is really trying to do the best they can do under the circumstances. So I wanted to leave with that, I'll close with that, and then answer any of your questions you may have, unless Tony has something quick he wanted to add.
Tony, is there anything you want to add?
I really want all of the commissioners to hearken to the last couple of days' meetings, especially when we know that the presentation from Khalil yesterday paints a very bleak picture. But I cannot stress enough, and I hope that all of the commissioners pay very careful attention to the fact that as we move through this pandemic and move into the future, our capabilities with regard to our computers, our software, and so on are so important as we move forward. We could not have accomplished what we have during this pandemic if it wasn't for Mark and the Litigation Technology Unit under the direction of Kim. This is so important that I only urge the Commission to consider that these will provide great savings into the future in terms of man hours worked and the ability to keep your communities safe. And when I say your communities, I mean every commissioner's community will have its detectives working in the community instead of wasting their time coming down physically to our office. So please, as we move forward, the technology is extremely important. The only other thing that I really want to stress is under Kim's leadership, we have taken quite seriously the shortfall projected in funds from the county. We, in fact, are looking at everything in our office. And as you know, Madam Prosecutor has been extremely aggressive in procuring and chasing down grants. We are very, very concerned that as we move into the future, those grants may be drying up, and how are we going to address our staff issues and costs if in fact that occurs. Now, we're not stopping going after grants, but those are the only things that I wanted to mention. Everything else is just pretty much an aside at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, for your remarks. Now, I'm told that I see that I think there are 4 people who have comments, And so, Madam Clerk, can you tell me what order they're in? Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry, I was still on mute. Where do you see comments? I didn't see anybody's
Well,
hand.
maybe I'm just looking at something different. But do you have a record of those folks?
Oh, Commissioner Baydoun has his hand raised right now.
Well, I got mine's raised, so put me on the list, Martha Scott.
Okay. Sam Baydoun and Alicia Bell has their hand raised.
Okay, so Sam Baydoun, you want to start?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Prosecutor Worthy, thank you for this presentation this morning. And I want to applaud you for all the steps that you have taken during this pandemic. You are truly the gatekeeper of Wayne County. We don't envy the position that you're in. You and your staff are on the front line, trying to keep all the residents of Wayne County safe. And you touched on something very dear to us in the Arab American community, domestic violence. Recently, we have seen the tragic consequences of this pandemic, where a mother was murdered by her son in Dearborn Heights. It was very tragic. It touched every Arab American in this community, Dearborn Heights in Southeast Michigan. But I just want to applaud you again, Prosecutor Worthy, and Tony touched on one of the comments or the points I wanted to make. How do you see the challenges to your department post COVID-19, and are there any grants in the stimulus package that the government is offering? Can you qualify? Does your department qualify for any grants that will help you in terms of staffing or any other ways of fighting crimes in Wayne County, being that we are the largest county in the state of Michigan?
We are always looking for grants that haven't stopped. We're having some challenges now, as I said in the meeting this morning, on the call this morning, because our grants person is trying to do the job of the CFO as well, because we don't have a CFO. Or a personnel person right now, so it's added to our stress. I probably should have mentioned that. And so she's trying to do that, but we never stop looking for grants. I get notifications from the state and federal level all the time. I text them to her, or email to her. She's already on top of it. We had one that came out the other day, a solicitation where there were like 8 different programs that I was interested in that could help our office financially. I should tell you also, we just received a grant from the federal government through the U.S. Attorney's Office for almost $1.5 million to hire 7 APAs. I said in the call yesterday, I hope that doesn't stop. No, I was telling Khalil to haul this. I know there's going to be a freeze committee, but again, that's $1.5 million we received to hire more prosecutors. And so that's going to be placed in prosecutors that left, that kind of thing. So we're happy about that. And we're working with people we normally wouldn't work with to try to receive, as we always do, to try to receive money for the office. But that's always been our mantra, but that has not stopped, Commissioner Baydoun. As a matter of fact, we're even doubling down because we know what the county is going to be going through, and we want to make sure that we're able to serve the public, and we know we're going to have tremendous issues. I can't stress this enough. Tremendous issues when we get back to the new normal, because we know that our warrant requests are going to be coming in fast and furious. We haven't been doing jury trials for almost 4 months. We're not going to start doing them, jury trials and waiver trials, until late summer, because there's no way to socially distance jurors from each other at this point, or we cannot have a lot of people in the courtroom during our trials. So we know we still have to do all those trials of the past 4 months and the new ones that are coming up on the cases that are being generated now. So it's going to be a really hard thing to manage. We will manage it, but it's going to be really hard. So we're always looking for ways to assist us financially.
Thank you again, Prosecutor Worthy, and may God bless you and bless all of your staff.
And Commissioner Baydoun, Dearborn has been probably the hardest hit for domestic violence issues, and we are very committed. There's another murder that happened, as you know, in your community, and we have been working round the clock for about 10 days now on that case. And so another horrible, horrific murder. So we are doing the best we can, but you have been particularly hit, your area, during this time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so who's next, Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Scott.
Commissioner Scott.
Oh, thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Martha G. Scott.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Prosecutor, now you mentioned the grant. How many staffers will you be able to hire out of that grant?
Out of the one that I mentioned from the federal government, 7.
Yes.
But we have, unfortunately though, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, we have another grant that's ending, so we're going to have to probably put some same people back into that new grant. So the good news is we won't lose personnel, but the bad news is we really won't have any additional people come the 30th of September.
Oh, wow. But that's good that you'll be able to have another grant. Otherwise, you wouldn't have any. That would be the end of it.
Right.
So that's
exactly.
good. But I just truly want to say that I want to thank the prosecutor, Mark, Tony, and any of the staff there. I just think you all are doing fantastic. You know, when I hear all of how it's coming together, what you have to do, you know, in this unusual time, I just want to say thank you, and may God continue to bless you, and prayers go out to all of you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Next, Madam Clerk.
Chair Bell.
Chair Alicia Bell.
Good morning still. I don't have a question. I just wanted, my hand was raised accidentally. I just want to thank the prosecutor for coming on and sharing with us the actions of the prosecutor's office. I thought it would be very important that all of the commissioners hear of the Herculean efforts of your area and what all of your prosecutors that you have been doing during this unprecedented time of our lives. So just thank you for what you're doing. Keep up the great work, and you know the commission is always here to assist you in any way necessary to help you do your job. Thank you.
Thank you. And please push out to all your constituents about the information on the Facebook page that has valuable information for your constituents. It may save some lives.
Commissioner Alicia Bell, you're doing a great job of talking without moving your lips.
It's a skill. It's a skill set.
Real cute.
Well, that gives me an idea. You need to post my picture up there then.
Well, no, Martha, I'm enjoying looking at your ceiling.
You have to have an 11-year-old IT person to do that for you, Martha.
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
Madam Clerk, next person.
Commissioner Marecki.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Madam Prosecutor, and your team for the very enlightening presentation. I have a few questions about the state releasing these 200 or so prisoners into Wayne County. I'm wondering who made that decision to decide who would be let out. Who at the state would have made that decision?
I don't know. I mean, there's a concern that I'm sure that we all share that the COVID-19 spreading into our prison institutions, and we all understand that. So I think I don't know who the push has been from the Michigan Department of Corrections, but I do know that from talking to my colleagues across the state, that we have all received these letters, although, again, we received the bulk of them, with the largest, obviously. And so as to who made the specific decisions, I just don't have an answer to that. All we can do is kind of respond to the letters that we get, or try to respond as best we can.
Were any of these prisoners, now you said there's murderers, rapists, carjackers?
Yeah, there's not just, what we were particularly alarmed about, and again, everybody should be treated humanely, and I know we agree with that, but what we were very alarmed about is we're not just talking about lower level felons. And so we have to be, there may be some people charged with that were convicted and served in murder that we may not object to, depending on how much time they've served, etc. So we're looking at everybody, and we're being as fair as we can. But it's just a very time-consuming operation. But as to who made the original decision, I don't know. It probably was a necessary decision. I'm not criticizing it. The only thing that I'm criticizing is the methodology with which it's been occurring. It would have been nice to have some notice so we could be better prepared, but we're going to do what we do all the time, and we're going to do our due diligence. We are not going to agree to those, although I think they're going to be released anyway, to those who we think will be a danger to the public, and there will be many that we will agree with.
And now, do you know if any of those were released on a tether system at all?
No, I don't know that. There's a difference between the prisoners the MDOC prisoner letters and the. Okay, you can't do that. I'm on the phone. Oh, sorry. Anyway, being a mother. But there's a difference between those letters and also the HIDA letters, the Homes Useful Trainee Act letters that are coming from, mainly for the thumb. And we're finding that they want to release some of those. Those tend to be younger offenders. And we have been working very collaboratively with all the parties involved. And we've agreed to a lot of those. And so we, again, they tend to be younger offenders. They tend to be, a lot of them, less serious crimes. And we're working, Lisa Coyle is the point person in my office, working with Judge Edwards, who's the presiding judge of the criminal division, and I believe Jonathan Sachs, I believe, from SATO. And so we are working with that. We are going through those cases. And like I said, on a number of those, we are agreeing that we're agreeing to their earlier release.
Okay, and my last question, at some point, are the communities notified if there's someone out that you are very concerned about, and they're out in one of our cities or townships? Would their police be notified?
Well, there are three categories. There's, of course, the administrative jail releases from the Wayne County Jail under Sheriff Napoleon, and two, the MDOC releases that we talked about a minute ago, and also the younger offenders, the youthful offender releases. So there are three pots. As far as the administrative jail releases, there really hasn't been anybody released without strict conditions that I'm overly concerned about. People will surprise you. You can only forecast as much as you can forecast. But as far as the jail is concerned, and I know the sheriff shares my view. I don't want to speak for him. I believe he shares my view that people charged with murder one, and people charged with rape in the first degree, and people charged with the capital offenses, the judge has not been releasing them anyway. And right. So there was one person that was charged with criminal sexual conduct in the first degree that we did agree surprisingly to release. And I had to go back to my staff and said, "Are you sure we want this person released who is charged with molesting children?" And the reason why we agreed to that release is because we received medical documentation that he didn't have long to live. And so we had to really think about that. And we said, you know what, in these terms, these conditions, we're all human beings. We all want to be humane. And if this documentation is correct, and we have no reason to believe that it wasn't, we had a court hearing and everything, then we will agree for him to spend his last days with his family. So under strict supervision and tether and a stay-at-home order. So that's really the only, go ahead.
No, so that was the ones from our jail. But yeah. I guess maybe I'm confused here. The ones that have been let out by the state, like in the...
They haven't been let out yet.
They haven't been let out yet.
No,
okay.
No. We have 28 days to respond.
Oh,
and what I will do,
and then they'll be let out after the 28 days if they disagree with you or whatever. Okay.
I think so, yes. So what I can do, if you like, I can certainly provide those names to you if you are interested in those that we find, when we're notified that they're released. We're not always notified. But our first order of the day is to notify the victim's family.
Okay, I thought they were already released and you had to do this. So you have the 28 days. Are all the letters, are all 200 on the same timeline of the 28 days?
No, No, they started around the 7th of April, I think is when we saw. I think I'm right on that. Where we saw our first one. It was done by email, and they're generic. So the only thing that's different are the names and the charges. And so I believe that was our first one. And so of course we're looking at these in the order that we received them. So no, some days we got 5, some days we got 30, some days we got 50, some days we got 15. So it varies.
Okay, yeah, I would appreciate that if you were willing to do something like that. And thank you for everything you're doing. And we really appreciate you, obviously. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Clerk, is there anyone else who would like to speak?
There's no hands raised.
Pardon?
There aren't any hands raised.
Oh, okay. All right. So to Prosecutor Worthy, you know that I'm a fan. So I certainly appreciate the tremendous job that you're doing. And what this whole COVID episode has brought to light is that we are totally dependent on technology. And we need to really focus after this is weaned somewhat on updating our technology. Just listening to your staffer there talk about using
Mark.
to use these outdated computers and try to repurpose them. That's really sad. So we need to really take a look at, and even the commission, you know, if not for Zoom, we would not be able to conduct our meetings as well as we have been able to do. So if nothing drives home the importance of having updated technology, this whole COVID-19 certainly has done that. And we need to pay careful attention so that we can be prepared for any other pandemic or situation that occurs. So thank you very much for coming in, and thank you, Mark, and thank you, Tony. Yes, thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much for
Madam
your time.
Chair.
We really appreciate it.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
2, discussion
Madam
with the
Chair,
Wayne
it's
County
Tony. May
Sheriff-
I be excused? I have another meeting.
Sure,
I
Tony.
apologize.
That's fine. You've done your job. Thank you very much.
Thank you kindly to all of you. God bless.
God bless you. Okay, Madam Clerk?
Discussion with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office about the actions it's taking regarding the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, and who do we have here today from the Sheriff's Department?
Good afternoon, it's Chief Dunlap.
Oh, hey, Chief.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
So, good afternoon again to all, and let me just say on behalf
Good
of
afternoon.
Sheriff Benny Napoleon, I want to echo Prosecutor Worthy's comments and say thank you to all of you for your voice and your concern and all of the assistance that we've been getting from many of the commissioners, as well as all of the elected officials. As you all know, the Wayne County Sheriff's Office has been hit really hard by this pandemic to the tune that we have lost 2 members, our commander, Donna Faye Collins, and Corporal Dean Savard. And even our Sheriff, Benny Napoleon himself, has experienced some challenges with this. I think all of you probably know by now that the sheriff's brother is, thank God, recovering after almost a month on the ventilator.
Wow.
To my knowledge, he probably spent the longest time on a ventilator than most people I've heard in Wayne County. And the sheriff did share with us a while back that, say, 8 other members of his family has also been impacted by the virus. So just some of the things that we're doing in the Wayne County Sheriff's Office to respond to this. Under the sheriff's leadership, the Undersheriff Faunus and Chief Mike Jaffer of our patrol operations have been working collaboratively, getting all of our members tested. Right now, today, there's testing going on at our downtown jail at 570 Clinton. So far with Wayne State, here at our jails, we've tested over 300 people. Also in partnership with the city of Detroit, we're getting anywhere from 30 to 40 spots a day to present our staff to be tested. We have had 176 people, staff, officers and civilian staff total that have tested positive for the virus. And of that 176, 66 of them have returned to work. Our population, I recorded it back on March 9th right at 1,388 people in custody. As you heard the prosecutor say earlier, today we have 865 people in our 3 jails. And that's a decrease of 523 people.
What were those numbers again, Chief?
Back on March 9th, the population was 1388 in custody.
1388 in custody, okay.
Right. And today is 865. In addition.
Oh, 865, that's quite a drop.
Yes, it is. And so today we have now over 800 people on tether in Wayne County.
Oh, okay.
Some of the operational changes that we made in our office in response to this, all jail visits have been restricted. We've eliminated all personal visits. Obviously, we can't eliminate attorney visits, but we have strongly encouraged attorneys to visit via video, and we made video visitation possible at all 3 of our jails. And to my knowledge, probably, I think we've only had 1 in-person visit, attorney visit, since this started back around March 16th. All staff are restricted to 1 entry point. Every day, anyone entering any of our buildings undergo a screening, which includes a temperature scan, and they're questioned with regards to any contact with anyone testing positive for this virus. Inmate movement in our jails has been restricted to the assigned housing unit. And in addition to that, every new book coming into the Wayne County jails are quarantined for the first 72 hours and monitored every 8 hours by our medical staff for symptoms of the virus. At the end of the 72 hours, the inmates are screened again, and if cleared, they're housed in general population. Our jail health is also now testing inmates who exhibit signs of this virus. And to date, we have had over 20 people tested, and 24 people tested. Out of the 24, 12 have tested positive, 6 negative, and 6 inmates are pending their results. Cleaning and sanitation, back on March 23rd through April 6th, thanks to the county executive's office, we were able to bring in industrial cleaner, Signal Restoration, and we did a deep cleaning of all of our facilities. The jails, the courts were also clean, as well as our sheriff headquarters, and all of our vehicles, including our transport vehicles that we transport inmates in. Everything was deeply cleaned and fumed. And on top of that, we've made certain that we had a supply of all required cleaning materials, which includes our sanitizers, our disinfectants. And I also want to give a shout out to Colonel Ted Sturdivant. I believe he's going to be next, but we're really grateful for the work that him and his team at Homeland Security is doing, making sure that we're outfitted with the PPE equipment that we need, to the tune of today, we've received over 9,000 N95 masks, 12,000 surgical masks, over 34,000 pairs of gloves, over 5,000 face shields, another 1,200 gowns that our officers will don when they're working in areas where we know we have inmates that are positive for the COVID. We also have over 40 temperature scanners, plenty of hand sanitizer. I forgot how many gallons, at least a couple of 100 gallons of hand sanitizer, bio wipes, and other supplies such as sprays and disinfectants.
And these came from where, Chief?
The great majority of it came from our Homeland Security Department, but also we've received a lot of donations, philanthropic donations, as well as some of the commissioners, Commissioner Baydoun, Commissioner Varga, Commissioner Bell, and several others through their relationships have made possible some of the equipment that we have received.
Okay.
Our video visitation, as I indicated earlier, we have restricted all visits, but Sheriff Napoleon directed that we work with our vendors to see if we can provide an opportunity and a space for the inmates to stay connected with their family members and loved ones on the outside. So those 865 people that are in our jail today, each one of them get a free 15-minute video call every week and a free 10-minute phone call. And I think all of you know that prior to the COVID, all of these services came at a cost to the inmate. But thanks to the relationship with our vendors, we have made some of these opportunities free. Also, to the credit of the executive office and members of our department, our officers are now receiving hazardous pay. And I guess I would just kind of wrap it up by saying, really, as the prosecutor has said, both Prosecutor Worthy herself, Chief Judge Kinney, I mentioned Colonel Sturdivant and his team, our Undersheriff, Chief Jafer, and all the members of our agency, especially the officers that work here in the Sheriff's Department. I just want to leave you with this before I take questions. I think we all know the concerns that all of us have about the jail and the possibility for the spread of the virus in the jail. Well, I'm sure we all know that the officers are doing time in the jail just like the inmates. And they're also exposed to the potential of contacting this virus and taking it home to their loved ones. But in spite of that, every day, the majority of the men and women of this agency, both sworn and unsworn, uniform and non-sworn, non-uniform, has shown up every day and given their best effort. And just last Thursday, I received a communication unsolicited from our public health sanitarian in our jail, who commended all of the staff and the inmates for what she communicated was her observation that on a daily basis, all of our staff and all of the inmates are practicing good hygiene, and all of them are wearing the N95 mask and the surgical mask, even without being told and without being coerced. And so with that, again, on behalf of the sheriff and all of the staff, we say thank you to all of you. Certainly, none of this could have been possible without the cooperation of all the electeds, from the CEO down to every member of the commission, and even those out in the philanthropic community.
First of all, I want to thank you, Chief Dunlap, for keeping us abreast of the situation over there. The chief has been sending me a report every day. I guess every now and then he skipped one day.
I skipped last night, Commissioner, and I meant to catch that. And the number was 176 for last night.
I got that.
You know, for the first time, I went home and fell asleep at 9 o'clock.
You're forgetting.
Working at 10 o'clock.
You're forgetting. But anyhow,
Yes,
the chief has
you
been
will get that
diligent.
report.
Yeah, the chief has been diligent in providing to me a report every day on the situation. And I, in turn, have been forwarding that information to all commissioners. All the other 14 commissioners have been receiving that as timely as I get it. As soon as I get it, I send it on. So I do want to thank you for keeping us informed so that we know what's happening over there on a timely basis. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. So are there questions from commissioners?
You have Commissioner Basham, then Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Okay, Commissioner Basham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to also thank Chief Dunlap for his leadership, his hard work. It's easy to, take a position like he's got, but to actually do the job in bad times, and there can't be any worse times than we're having right now, to show humility, leadership, and forward-looking, as well as protecting the public, but also protecting inmates and the people that have to work in the jails and the sheriffs. I also want to thank Tardival Sturdivant for working with the Sheriff's Department and the rest of Wayne County
And so for what it's worth, this old guy from downriver certainly appreciates the hard work and dedication that you've done to this county and Sturtevant also. Thank you.
And we appreciate you too. Thank you, Commissioner.
So I see, Commissioner Basham, that Comcast came out and took care of you then, right?
Yes, ma'am. I got a new router. Everything is good so far. But the meeting's not over yet. So,
so you probably exerted a little pressure on them to get that done.
no, ma'am.
Yeah, right. Okay. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Commissioner McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too want to commend you, Chief Dunlap, on the work that you're doing, and my condolences to you as well, and the loss of some very key members of your staff. Just wanted to clarify the testing procedures for the inmates that are coming in. Now, are they being tested, or just are you just taking their temperatures and just kind of monitoring them?
So let me say, certainly there's not enough test kits for anyone, officers or inmates, as we all know. But inmates are provided the same opportunity as anyone else at this point that exhibit signs or symptoms of the virus. We don't have enough kits to just, test every person. However, there are several individuals in the county executive's office and within our office that's working with some of the folks in our philanthropic community to see if we can maybe find an opportunity and funding to provide testing for all inmates. But at this time, inmates are only tested when they exhibit signs or symptoms of the virus. And when they're tested, they're isolated pending the results. If their tests come back positive, then they're placed in quarantine isolation. So we have like 3 different housing units. We have our general population, we have our isolation for anyone that's suspected of having this virus, and then we have quarantine, which is at minimum a 14-day quarantine and isolation.
And that's a great, I think, process that you're using, but most all of the commissioners and others in the community know that I am a stickler for testing, and however we can help you get that done, I'm willing to advocate for that, because we know that there's a lot of individuals that are carrying the virus. They're asymptomatic, and they are then passing it on to others. And we want to protect your staff, because they, like you said, they're there, and they have to endure the environment as well. And so whatever we can do to help with getting more test kits, I think that's what we need to do, so that when someone comes in, you can test them and it can reduce the spread of the virus to others.
Thank you.
So thank you again, and I'm very supportive of whatever you need.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Madam Chair. I guess I.
Okay. Commissioner Martha G. Scott.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chief. I appreciate the update you gave me on my Chief Napoleon. We've been missing him, and I'm just grateful that he is finally off that respirator. And yeah. So I do appreciate that information. And on yesterday, just say to Officer Jaffer that I thank him for allowing some of his staff to come to Highland Park to work with our police department to get some things over badly needed foods to our seniors yesterday. So,
Correct.
Thank you all so much for what you do, and thank you for giving my chair the update so that she passes it on to us every day. So I do appreciate that.
Well, thank you, ma'am, and I'll certainly let the sheriff and both Chief Hilton Napoleon. I understand that, you know, he's sitting up, he's eating, he has some rehab,
Good.
but I can honestly say that, you know, the sheriff has, in spite of that, surprisingly been engaged every day to the tune of, you know, the sheriff is on the call with us twice a day, and even at us encouraging him to take time, you know, for himself and his family. I don't
Yes.
know if it was just a matter of him, you know, being engaged so that he can, you know, occupy his mind. But, you know, thanks to all of you for all of your prayers, because certainly
Yes.
follow Facebook and see the sheriff's Facebook page and his nephew. They have communicated. It's nothing but your prayers, and all of you have reached out at different points. So I will pass that along. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, and thank you for all that you do. Bless
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other commissioners?
Commissioner Baydun.
Commissioner Baydun.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief Dunlap, first, let me publicly express my condolences again on the loss of the lives of the deputies from the Wayne County Sheriff. As you know, early on in this crisis, I had the opportunity to come by the jail and drop off some donated masks, and I witnessed firsthand what you guys were going through. This was early on, and I just want to tell you that you will always have my support. You are on the front line with your deputies, and I just want to tell you that several generous business owners have pledged some money. I'm in the process of shopping around for some masks at a good price, and the Wayne County Sheriff will have their share from those masks will be donated. I'm hoping sometime within the next week or so. Stay safe. May God bless you and bless all of your deputies. Thank you again.
Thank you, and thank you again for those donations.
Okay. Anyone else?
Chair Bell.
Chair Bell?
Yes, thank you. Again, Chief Dunlap, I just want to thank you again for all the hard work in the jails. I know that is something that has been extremely difficult, and you all have worked it wonderfully. And of course, thank the sheriff for all of his hard work, and especially when dealing with his brother. I have a quick question. Don't know if you have the answer right now, but just generally speaking, with the population in the jail so low and so many people on tether, has there been plans of what to do after the COVID-19 crisis is over? Are we anticipating putting those persons who are on tether back into the jail, or has that conversation not been held yet?
So I think, you know, certainly folks are thinking about that. And I think if you think about what the prosecutor shared with us earlier, unfortunately, crime is still ongoing and ticking up. And certainly I unfortunately believe that, you know, once the COVID is over, there might be some individuals that will return to the jail. I think a lot of the district courts are using all the discretion that they can to try to, you know, keep folks out of jail. But as we heard from our prosecutor with, you know, how domestic violence is ticking up and resulting in murder, I think it's just a matter of time before we really know how the numbers are going to change, how many are going to return to jail, and how many will be able to stay out. And all that's going to be, I'm sure, depending on, you know, their cooperation and their success with the tether program, because we have, as I indicated, over 800 people on tether, just as many as we have all three jails combined. Mm-hmm. And so I think, you know, the jury is still out on that. We'll have to see, you know, how things progress post this pandemic.
Okay, well, thank you. Keep us posted on that. And again, I want to just commend all of the deputies who work in the jails and the wonderful job they've been doing. And you all stay safe. Thank you so much for the update.
And thank you for all of your support.
Okay, Chief Chief Dunlap, I'd like to certainly give our deep appreciation to the sheriff for doing a great job in this difficult situation, and also just to let him know that we're sending our prayers and blessings to him for the health challenges that he is experiencing, both at work, at home, and his extended family. So let him know that we're keeping him in prayer, and we know that prayer works.
Yes.
Yeah, we were all praying. I've been following him and his reports on his brother Hilton, and I've been praying for Hilton. I really, really, really have been praying hard, because the first report I received was that they didn't expect him to live overnight.
Correct.
But it was sheer prayers and the love of his family, I believe, that pulled him through. So just let him know that we've been helping him.
Yeah.
We're prayer warriors, and certainly nobody can pray any stronger than Martha G. Scott.
All right.
So he's had a lot of help.
So we certainly believe in the power of prayer over pandemic. So thank you. And I'll pass that along to the sheriff.
And tell him we still love him.
I will.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So if there are no more questions on this item, we will now move to the discussion with the Homeland Security and the Emergency Management Department. And who we have here today from Homeland Security?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. This is Tad Sturdivant, the Director of Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
Hi, Mr. Sturdivant.
Yes.
How are you?
We're so happy to hear from you, and
well, I'm happy to be heard.
We're getting great reports about how you are doing a great job out there and helping us get the PPE that we need to keep our jail safe. So thank you so much for helping and securing that equipment for them.
Well, thank you. And we're working 16 and 18 hours a day, 7 days a week to make sure that happens.
All right.
All right. So you want to give us a report on what's happening out there in your area?
Yes, Madam Chair, I will. I'm going to talk about 5 points briefly, and then Q&A if anybody has a question. The first point is our preparation for this particular COVID-19, and we actually started preparing for something of this magnitude quite a while ago. About 2 years ago, I started, or the department started, a local emergency managers meeting where we met with each and every local appointed emergency manager in the county on a quarterly basis, face-to-face. And the reason for that meeting is so that we would not get to know each other in the middle of an emergency, that we would get a chance to meet each other, develop those relationships, which have been very beneficial during the COVID-19. We would talk about our office, what they could expect from us, our capabilities, and we would get a feel from their offices. And we're talking about every jurisdiction in Wayne County. As of March 24th, when the governor came out with her stay at home, we actually moved into a whole different realm. I have an office of 7, and all 7 of us are doing currently 3 or 4 different jobs. Let's talk about resource procurement. Our office is responsible for the county in making requests to the State Emergency Operating Center through a computer system called the Michigan Critical Infrastructure Management System, which we call MySINS. So if a community has a need, they contact our office. We actually input that need into the computer system, and that need is forwarded up to the state. Currently, the state has over 7,000 different requests in that computer system. That computer system has been overwhelmed, and the state is simply pushing out supplies to the hardest hit areas in Michigan. Obviously, Wayne County being the largest county and being one of the hardest hit counties, we're receiving supplies 7 days a week. Those supplies are coming very unannounced, and we don't know what's on the truck. But we've also, our office has secured several donations of supplies, and I just want to talk about that. We received donations from J&B Medical, the McKesson Corporation out of Virginia, DTE, and Magna International. Those companies have donated supplies to us, and sometimes the donation have been prescriptive, where we have to give them to certain entities such as first responders, but we've handled that very well. To date, we have supplied every jurisdiction, including the city of Detroit, with PPE within a 48-hour period after receiving particular equipment, specifically donations. So we received a donation from McKesson Corporation, in which we supplied PPE for every firefighter, every police officer, and every EMS person in the county. And those jurisdictions have been very pleased with that allocation. And that allocation came unsolicited. That was something that we did out of our office. Currently, we are receiving a donation of face shields right now. And let me just tell you the infrastructure in which we have developed, so that when a request for equipment comes in, i.e. the sheriff or Harper Woods or a downriver agency, again, each agency has a local emergency manager. That local emergency manager puts in a request for their community. So if the police, the fire, a funeral home has a request from that community, they put in that request to us. When we can fill it, we call that local emergency manager to our warehouse down in Southgate. They in turn pick up that supplies. That supplies is then taken back to their community, in which they disperse it to their firefighter, EMS, or local funeral home. To date, just some rough figures, we've disseminated over about 105,000 N95 masks, about 419 gallons of hand sanitizer, about 4,100 bottles of hand sanitizer, about 220,000 pairs of gloves, about 1,200 face shields, and over 20,000 surgical masks. We track that and send that out to those communities so that they get the PPE to the people that actually need it. We provide PPE for our first responders, which includes police, fire, and EMS. Also to our Region 2 Health Coalition. Our Region 2 Health Coalition are our hospitals. So we give stuff to Region 2 so that they can provide it to the hospitals. We also put in their requests through this. If there's a request for medical personnel, they give that to us, and we turn it around within hours and send it up to the state EOC. We've been very busy as we have talked. I get about 20 emails per day on vendors for supplies, and we have secured a tremendous amount, thousands of face masks on donations, as well as the county has purchased some face masks, and we turn that over to our first responders. In this particular COVID-19 pandemic, public health is the lead, and we are in support of public health. But even while we're doing COVID-19, we are also on flood management and flood preparedness, because this is the time that our communities in Wayne County experience issues with floods, and we've been in close contact with the National Weather Service in that flood preparation. That's pretty much what I wanted to present. I can answer and address any questions or concerns you may have.
Okay, first of all, thank you. It sounds like you guys have been sitting around twiddling your thumbs and doing nothing. No, I'm seriously, seriously, you guys have been really, really busy.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you, other than the philanthropic donations, where else do you get your equipment from? Is it federal? Is it state? Where does it come from?
Yeah, it comes from the state. FEMA donates to the state. The state then in turn passes that information, that supplies down to us, and we disseminate that information to our first responders. So the state has pushed out supplies. They have not pushed out nearly enough supplies. Hence, the donations have been very instrumental in arming our first responders with the supplies that they need.
You don't work, do you work at all with the military?
We work through the state EOC, and if there's a need for the Michigan National Guard, we do have a mechanism to make that request, and typically that request would come from a local jurisdiction. We would then determine if we have the needs to meet that particular request. If we don't, we then make that request to the state of Michigan for the Michigan National Guard.
I see. Okay. So, Madam Clerk, we have a list.
1
Are
second.
there commissioners who would like to speak?
Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Mr. Sturdivant, for all the work that you're doing. I know it's been overwhelming for a lot of us. And I had a question about the testing. You know, I keep going back to testing because I think it's vitally important that that we reduce the spread by knowing who is positive. But also in looking at the PPE, how have you worked with, I guess, the public at all in providing any of the resources to the general public? And I ask this question because I'm really concerned about some of the senior complexes in our communities. I have 8 senior complexes, and there is a need to ensure that when you're in such enclosed environments that we can reduce the spread. And so have you worked with any of the general public, and in particular with the senior complexes, to provide any resources, any masks, any equipment at all?
All right, thank you for that question, Commissioner. 2 things. You talked about testing first. Let me address that question, then I'll go into the general public. Our department does not handle the testing. The testing component comes under public health, and public health would probably be the better department to talk about the testing mechanism and supplies for testing and what's needed for that. We have not handled any of the testing as of yet. As it relates to senior complexes, if you're speaking of long-term care facilities, the answer is yes. We supply supplies to our Region 2 Healthcare Coalition, and that Region 2 Healthcare Coalition supplies that supply and others supplies to our long-term care coalitions, long-term health facilities. As it relates to the general public, We have not yet reached that point as our inventory, we barely have enough to cover our first responders and their needs, funeral homes, and the hospitals. So to answer your question, as far as a senior complex, if it's not a long-term care facility, we have not reached that point as of yet with our inventory.
Okay, and can you provide information on the, you said Regional Health Care Coalition, or?
Yes, what would you like? It's I can provide information regarding Region 2 Healthcare Coalition, and it's a healthcare in the county of Wayne, which is a little bit different other counties. For example, when I participate on our state emergency operating calls twice a week, some of the emergency managers in counties apply equipment directly to hospitals. In Wayne County, we have more hospitals in Wayne County than in some counties you could put 4 or 5 together. So in Wayne County, we have a healthcare coalition that is responsible for providing equipment to hospitals, for providing medical resources to those hospitals, but we assist them with the donations we received and the equipment that they may not have. We provide that, and then they in turn provide it to the long-term care facilities.
Okay, and
I hope that answers.
It does. I'm getting there. So the long-term care facilities, what do you consider a long-term care facility?
Like a nursing home. That's a good question. A nursing home. Sometimes you have rehabilitation centers that meet that criteria, and that's the criteria that is that Region 2 Healthcare would give a better definition as to what they consider to be a long-term care facility.
Thank you.
And if you need any information on Region 2, I can provide that through the chair contact.
That would be great. Thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Thank you for all that you guys are doing as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sturdivant, for a report, a very well done report. I think that we're all a little wiser as to, first of all, what your responsibilities are in terms of, and then secondly, what you have been able to achieve, which sounds like you've been able to do quite a bit. And we are so appreciative of that. So with that, I will open it up for any comments from my commissioners.
Commissioner Scott.
Commissioner Scott, okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Mr. Sturdivant. Now, those donations that you received, did you request those donations, or is that just something that these organizations sent to you?
Both, Commissioner. Some I have requested, and some have came our way that they wanted to provide donations to one of the hardest hit areas in the state.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and thank you for all that you are continuing to do, because you certainly have the experience from the state and the county.
I've been in this job, or I've been in this business for a while. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, all right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so Commissioner Scott and I both remember you from the state police.
Yes.
When we were up in Lansing, so we know
as well.
That's right.
so we know your capabilities, and we're just so happy to have you in this position.
Mm-hmm.
So
thank you very much.
Okay, next person.
I believe it's Commissioner Ware.
Commissioner Jewel Ware.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Actually, I just wanted to tell Commissioner Baker McCormick for any senior buildings that she have in Detroit that we develop guidelines for the buildings, and it's the Detroit Public Health Department that she might want to go on the conference calls with them so she can get an update on how they're handling the buildings. And we know that the mayor's on TV every day. He give us an update of the nursing home. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll contact you later. Look, read
All
your.
right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or concerns?
Commissioner Baydun.
Commissioner Baydun.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Sturdivant, for everything that you're doing, you and your staff, to keep all of us safe. I have a question, and I'm not sure if this is within your jurisdictions or you can elaborate on it. What are some of the measures being put in place when people travel into Michigan, when they come through the airport? Are they being tested? Is the temperature being taken? The reason why I asked this question, because I know of several people who came to this country, they were not even tested, and they had the virus and they ended up in the hospital. I don't know if you can elaborate on this.
Sure, that is a good question. Again, that question should be directed to our public health, which I know I participated in a conference call with them Super Bowl Sunday. And I know that they put some guidelines together, but that is in their bailiwick, as I say, their wheelhouse. And Commissioner, it'll probably be better addressed through public health.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Andrew. Can I say something real quick to that point?
Sure.
Just want to remind people, and Commissioner Baker McCormick touched on a public health question as well, that in about 10 minutes at the next commission hearing, we're going to have Carol Osterberry, our public health official, will be there. So any commissioners who aren't on HHS committee should still stick around and ask Carol whatever questions they might have that pertain to public health, especially about the testing countywide.
Okay, and I think that Commissioner Baker McCormick is on that committee, right? Commissioner
Yes, she is.
Yeah, so I know that she has a great concern about testing. So perhaps more of that will be handled at the health department committee meeting. So and with that, are there any other concerns? Well,
Chair Bell.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I hear someone else?
Chair Bell.
Who?
Chair Bell.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chair Alicia Bell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. I just want to make it a trifecta and also thank Tad for his work that he's been doing, and he's been doing it with a little bit under the weather. So thank you, Tad, for all the work that you've done. I want to wish you healing prayers as you continue to heal from your fall. And please continue to keep us posted on all the wonderful work that you're doing, providing these PPEs to our first line defenders of law enforcement and the first responders. You're doing a great job. Keep up the great work. If anything we can do, please let us know. And then I guess this is to Tad and also for Annie on the phone. Once we're through this, I know we're going to have some expenditures that we did not anticipate. I just look forward to seeing those expenses line item of all the things that we purchased and the cost of them to help us with the reimbursement that I'm hopeful that we'll receive from the CARES Act for all of the things that we had to purchase that we had not anticipated. So just thank you again, Tad, and look forward to your continued good work and your continued good health.
Thank you, Commissioner Bell. Appreciate it very much.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, you know what? I just want to say to all of our presenters today, this has been enlightening. We've been given a wealth of information that we find useful, especially when our constituents ask questions. You know what we're doing and how things are going, and so and I'm going to throw this out to the chair as well as to my fellow commissioners, that during this time, during this pandemic time, I think it might be a wise idea to have more updates on especially these three areas: the prosecutor's office, the sheriff's department, and Homeland Security. So I would like to do that on a regular basis with your concurrence, Chair Bell.
Duly noted, Commissioner. I was just speaking to Pam earlier today about getting back on our regular schedule and even having an enhanced schedule. So that is underway. Thank you so much for bringing it up.
Yeah, we have learned a lot, and we can share this information out to our constituents and the public. So I'd like to certainly do this on a regular basis until we get through this.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So that we can be well informed about what we're doing here. I don't think one person will leave this meeting today without having learned something very important. So if and this is to our staff, to the clerk, to Pam, if we can kind of arrange to do this on a regular basis, it doesn't have to be as extensive as it is today, but at least to update us on these critical areas.
And I will certainly give every chair the authority to call meetings as much as you need to during this crisis time.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Are there any other comments? Okay, Madam Clerk.
E, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
I've not been notified of any additional matters that we should bring up.
Public comments.
Okay, is there anyone online from the public who would like to make a comment on the issues that we've addressed here today? Is there anyone online from the public who would like to address any issues that we have brought up today? Okay, I don't see any. How about you, Madam Clerk?
Nope, I don't see anybody.
Okay, all right, so the next on the agenda is adjournment. Okay, do I have a motion?
So
Support.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Basham. Is that support from Commissioner Dobb?
Yes.
Okay, so a motion by Commissioner Basham and support by Commissioner Dobb that we adjourn this meeting. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The motion carried. This meeting is adjourned.